basket, that kind of thing. And working with Zach LaVine, that 1-2 punch did not work well enough. Yeah. So now they're going to work together again in Sacramento. And
I know they go to the finals.
Yeah, maybe.
Everybody that leaves Chicago, right? Yeah, so, but look, this is a bigger picture than just Zach LaVine, although I want to hear from people about what you think his legacy was in Chicago. I mean, I don't how else to put it from a team's standpoint than saying it was an utter disappointment, but there's nuance within his game. I get that. And then there's the Bulls aspect of it. Are you happy that they at least started whatever they're going to do? If this is a rebuild, okay, they started it. If it's a retool, at least they're doing something.
Yeah.
At least they're doing something, even though this is a complete disaster when you take the 2 or 3 year run of AK. Now he has to make the best of a horrendous situation, which he made in the first place.
Jesse, what we're talking about here is the worst organization in Chicago, and one of the worst organizations in the National Basketball Association, the Chicago Bulls. To make this deal with Zach LaVine now, you are 2 to 3 years late on this deal.
Yeah.
First of all, you don't give him an extra contract. You let him play out that first contract to be able to just tack on more and then end up trading him anyway, realizing that, again, even if you are just a casual basketball fan, you know where the stars are. The stars are not in Chicago.
No.
And you have to understand that because you were just getting in the play-in game, just clinging onto a playoff spot, that group did not work. It is amazing how Carter Shelvis and Eversley are still in position. I know the Reinsdorfs are very loyal. I get that. But you have to look at the one-loss record. You have to take a look at what's happening here. For them to unplug it now is just, to me, basketball malfeasance.
Yeah, it is. It's 2 years too late. You're right. And I wonder if Jerry and Michael are going to follow the same game plan they did with Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams with the White Sox. They let them get through the trade deadline, 23, right? 23?
Mm-hmm.
And then they fired him in August. And maybe we'll see similar. Let him get through the trade deadline. Let him blow it up. Let him think that he's about to go on a rebuild. And then you move on from him and start the whole thing over. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
And I would get rid of Billy Donovan on the first bus out of town. I'm sorry. Underwhelming there as well. And this season put an exclamation mark on it for me. Oh, we're going to play this up-tempo. We got Josh Giddey. We're going to run and gun. Yeah, big deal. Big deal. You're giving up more points than ever. Instead of developing and coaching some defense out of this group, you've gone the opposite way. And what are they, 21 and 29?
Yeah.
They took 52 threes yesterday against the Detroit Pistons, made 19, and still got outscored. The Pistons took 33s. It's a joke. Billy Donovan has been a joke in this town. When have they overachieved in any one moment of his run here? I get that he lost ball for a long time, 5 years ago it feels like at this point. When have they ever overachieved under him? Never.
They've used that as a crutch for a long time, and that became the national narrative as well around basketball circles, they only had Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball is not the difference between you beating Boston in the East and not. That's not the difference.
No doubt.
Again, he's a stabilizer at the guard
spot. And they were good when he was at his best.
But not to be an upper echelon team, Jesse. Let's not get that twisted.
Yeah.
But I just can't say enough about Carter Shelvis and Eversley. We should be able to have a parade down State Street just because they made a deal. To be able to be in that position and then wake up yesterday and just say, you know what we should do? We should make a trade. Or to sit there in that spot for 3 years. Think about the sport you cover in baseball. Be a general manager in baseball and say, yeah, we're not going to make any deals. We'll just, the phone's hold. We're not going to do anything.
Just end up with the same record every year.
Yeah. Well, that person would be fired.
Yeah.
In the sport that you cover in baseball, I don't care if it's the Sacramento A's. I don't care if it's the White Sox. I don't care. I'm talking about bad organizations. At least bad organizations in baseball will pick up the phone because they want more young assets. For the Bulls to stand still, you know what that means? They stand still because they love their crew, they love the core, because they just want the lights on in April.
And that's the cliche narrative, I think, rings true. That they just wanted to have fannies in the seats, and people know Zach LaVine's name, and they know DeMar's name, and they know Vooch's name, and they're going to come. And amazingly, they're still drawing 20,000, though it's down compared to the previous. It's finally starting to dwindle, which is maybe why they finally decide to do this retool, rebuild, whatever it's going to be in the end.
The people in Glencoe think Michael's coming back. That's why they keep coming to the game.
I guess, but the upper deck is it's sparse these days.
Well,
But it's such a big building, you still get 20,000. I think they rank third, but they used to be first every year.
for many years. I know it's scary, Jesse, to be able to dismantle your team and be the Washington Wizards or the Charlotte Hornets or what Utah is going to do, taking for Cooper Flag or the Pelicans. I know it's scary. But if you have a good front office, it should not be scary. Because look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have 1 million draft picks, and they're in first place now in the West. Now, again, do they win the championship? I don't know. But I trust Sam Presti to say, we're going to plug this thing and then plug it in, and we're going to be able to be in first place in a few years. I just think that the Bulls are in a bad spot right now. Let them go and do whatever they're going to do as far as making trades, Vucevic, Kobe White, whomever. But then afterwards, they should be fired.
They should be fired because you also have to make this a destination. How did the LA Lakers get to trade for Anthony Davis and then for Luka? How does that happen in the span of a half decade or however long Anthony? They traded for Anthony Davis at his peak. Yeah. Now they've traded for Luka at his peak. Where's the Bulls trade for a great player in his peak? Because Zach LaVine wasn't it. Zach LaVine wasn't it. Jimmy Butler's had a better career since leaving than Zach LaVine's had here, even though Butler seems like a pain in the ass these days.
I just want to be fair, when we talk about Zach LaVine, because, again, he scored a lot of points and did a lot of things for the Chicago Bulls. But it's also on management to supply enough talent around him, meaning that if Zach LaVine, and I said this years ago, and I'm just going to dig this old phrase back up. If Zach LaVine is the face of your team, you don't have a very good team.
No, I think you're exactly right.
I mean, and by the way,
no doubt.
That's no disrespect. I'm just saying that he can score in abundance, but not a superstar. And you need to be able to have stars or more superstars around Zach LaVine. LaVine is good for the Bulls if you have other scorers around him. And so, but this is what he was in. He was in this vortex of suck. That is the Chicago Bulls.
And you and I even agree that there were some shortcomings with him, and what they do, hand him 240 whatever million it was that they had. I mean, it's just one screw up after another. So if I'm Ryan Storp, I say, okay, AK, do what you got to do this week, and then let's talk about you. And take Billy Donovan with you.
Yes, let them do what they're going to do at the deadline, and then they should be fired. They've been fired years ago, just like the Zach LaVine deal should have happened years ago. But here we are. So what's your question to the Captain Jacob Nation? What's your question?
I do want to know what people think about his legacy, because I could be biased. I really have been a hater since earlier. I remember going on Waddle, so I don't know why I remember this. I was in New York during Insanity. Yeah. I remember going on, and I wish the Bulls had somebody like that. And I ripped LaVine kind of early on. I just didn't like the vibe. So I admit that I just early on never was a LaVine guy. I admit that. I met him at an All-Star game, nice enough guy. That has nothing to do with it. Jason Hayward's a great guy. Like, there's on the court and there's off the court. So what do you think of his legacy? I mean, we know what the Bulls were. They were terrible with him. Is it his fault? Is it AK's fault? And then the trade itself. I mean, are you sort of, like me, happy that they actually did something, yet this is a disaster of a situation that they're trying to get out of? Getting their own pick back. A few journeyman type players.
Yeah.
And so, like, what do you think of the trade? Was it good? Was it bad? Are you sad to see him go? All those things are going through my head right now.
All right, we'll take your phone calls coming up. 312-332-ESPN, 332-3776 is our telephone number. Jesse's in for Cap on the Cap and J Hood Morning Show. We'll get your thoughts on Zach LaVine. If you did not hear over the weekend, he is traded to the Sacramento Kings. Why is this even worse for the Bulls? We'll talk about that next on Cap and J Hood.
This is Cap and J Hood. They beat the traffic commute, so you don't have to. On ESPN Chicago.
It's the Cap and J Hood Morning Show on ESPN 1000 and streaming on the ESPN Chicago app. Presented by ESPN Ventures. Hoping that you're going to have a great Monday and a great week. Jesse Rogers in for Cap as we talk to you about Zach LaVine traded to the Sacramento Kings. 312-332-3776 is our telephone number. We're talking about Zach LaVine's legacy. And just my thought, Jesse, is like Zach LaVine on a really good team. Say if he's on the Celtics, there's a reason why there'd be a third or fourth scorer at best. But he was the best scorer and the best player on the Chicago Bulls team, and there was never enough around him. And on top of that, Zach was not going to try to make others better. He was just trying to score and did what he could.